Good morning, Venerable.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Venerable. How are you?
Good, good. I'm trying to get my camera a little bit more clean. I don't know if I managed.
Yes, you did.
Better?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, good, good, good. I'm so sorry. I never think it's my camera. I always think it's something else. Yes. You want me to start?
Yes, Venerable. Whenever you
Okay.
like. Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in again. Oops. I have to make my construction stable. Thank you for being here again. We have had already 4 full days of talking about how to live life to the fullest, and we have another one to go before we have a little break from the weekend. So maybe before we start, we give ourselves 2 minutes of time, or a few minutes of time, to let our minds settle in the present moment. And we can do that by being aware of our body, the physical part of us. And we can do that by, for instance, scanning with our mind to the different parts of the body. You can feel your back and your stomach and your buttocks, and your legs and your feet, your arms, your hands, your head. Feeling like, oh, this is me sitting. My body is sitting. And then you can focus on your breath. Maybe you have the need to breathe in and breathe out deeply a few times to really feel that you are relaxing in the present moment. You have made clear to yourself that this time is there totally for you. You do not need to think about any issues that are still there from the past. You do not need to think about what is going to happen in the future. You can be completely here, present. Don't judge yourself. Be gentle with yourself. And then set up a good motivation for being here. Becoming a better version of yourself in order to be of greater benefit to others is a very good motivation. Becoming a better version of yourself is also great. Whatever inspires you to listen, to be present, and to apply the teachings to your own mind. You can direct your mind in that way. Thank you for doing that. And then we can start. And I'll do a little. I have something in my throat. I'm very sorry. I was totally fine till just now. It will clear, I hope, soon. So in order to live life to the fullest, we need to understand what is holding us back from that. We need techniques that teach us or show us how we can diminish the influence of whatever is holding us back. And then when we reflect on the natural state that we can develop, and we start looking into what qualities does it have, then we need to know, how can I develop these qualities? Right? So this is what we try to cover within this course. What is it that we need to let go of? What is it that we need to let go of, and therefore it will diminish? And what do we need to nourish in ourselves? And so we have been talking about that in order to live to the fullest, that we need to be present with our experience. And our experience happens in the present moment, not anywhere else. Here we experience. So to be present there, we feel that we can live life to the fullest. And so yesterday you got some tools how to be with unpleasant experiences. I think this is the biggest challenge for us spoiled people who have been learning our whole life. Oh, I want something better, you know, whatever exists in the world. We have had so many versions of that same thing, but every time better quality, better quality, better quality, better quality. And we threw out the old one and we got in the new one. Right? Or in a different color, or with a different fabric, or something different because it feels better, right? And we have been doing this for years. So our mind has been winding up, has been spoiled. Every time when we don't like it, we can do something in order to make it better. Most of the time we can do something to make it better, especially on the material level. Maybe on the relationships level and on the level with ourselves, we have more trouble finding solutions. But then if we distract ourselves enough with whatever is happening in the sense world, maybe we get over ourselves and we're back on track of being happy again. That's what we have been doing. So the mind is not used to be with discomfort at all. Right? There's discomfort, find a solution. That's how we live life. Nobody tells you, or maybe your mom did, maybe you have discomfort, deal with it, sit with it. You know? What would be very nice if there is discomfort and there is a very good friend sitting with us and say, it's okay to feel that. It's okay. Of course you feel shitty. Of course you suffer. Of course it hurts. Of course, you know, just feel it. Allow it to arise in the mind. Be with it. You know, because the moment we would have a friend like that, or the moment we would be ourselves, we would ourselves be the friend. No, we would that friend to ourselves. That moment, that need for more and more and more also starts to diminish. Right? If we know how to be with the opposite, if we know how to be with the suffering of not having something, then the need to have something is also not that big. True? So I think this is a very important one for us, but you have to try yourself, you know, maybe. I always love to hear from if that is true for you and how it works for you. So maybe in some time, if you have practiced this for a bit, drop me an email or something to share your experience. Being with unpleasant experiences again and again makes us less reactive. Right? And when something doesn't go well, we don't feel like I have to change it. You know, we can just say, okay, I know how to accept that. I can just sit with that. I can be with it. I know how to do that. And so when we do that, then the delusions, they start to subside in the mind, and the mind becomes more calm, more clear, more spacious. It becomes everything that we always wanted to have. And so yesterday we also saw that our anger is closely connected to our attachment. And the more we are attached to something, the more we get upset when we get the opposite. Is that all clear for everyone? Or are there any big questions for now? Otherwise, I'll continue and we're going to look into the nature of attachment. Good. Okay, I continue. Okay, good. Attachment. Attachment, or the mind that grasps for pleasure or comfort, is the main force under the influence of which we take rebirth. We have taken rebirth in the desire realm, right? And I think as long as our mind exists like that, we will keep taking rebirth somewhere in the desire realm. Attachment or desire is the main motivator of everything that we do. So desire, you know, in Buddhism, we talk about desire, we talk about attachment. And desire can be of two types. It can be a craving. It can be, I just have to put some boxes on top of each other to have the right, but now they're not really lining up. So I sometimes have an accident. I hope this is better. I'm sorry for that. So we have two types of desire. One, it has the quality of craving. I want that. I want to go there. I want to have that. So that mind is motivated by a self-grasping and self-cherishing mind. It's about me, and I want to bring something closer, or I want to bring me to some place where I can experience something that I desire. The other type of desire is, for instance, the desire which is a wish to become liberated from samsara, or the wish to become enlightened to benefit all sentient beings. You know, I have the desire to benefit you. That type of desire is not coming from a grasping mind, right? That is coming from a giving mind. That is a virtuous mind. That is a mind that leads to happiness. So I will try to just speak about attachment, but in the text you sometimes find the word desire, you know, and maybe I also use it sometimes. Then know that when I use it within this context, I'm talking about the desire, which is attachment, which comes from the self-grasping mind. So this attachment coming from the self-grasping mind. And yesterday we said that that mind is a mind that believes that the self exists in a way that in actuality it doesn't exist like that. We hold on to the idea of a self. We hold on to the idea that the self is something. But when we investigate whether or not such a self exists, we cannot find it. So with respect to the self, we have a distorted view of reality. We see something that in actuality doesn't exist. This I need you to be really clear. We see qualities in the self and therefore also in objects that in actuality do not exist. We fantasize something, we add something, we create something with the mind, which in actuality doesn't exist. We do that with respect to the self. We believe that the self exists inherently in and of itself as an objective entity, which has some kind of autonomy, which is independent of the body and the mind, which is independent of anything else. Right? That self that is the ruler of the body and the mind, that makes all the decisions. Having these qualities of being independent, being autonomous, being a ruling entity, they are not there in actuality. They are made up by our mind. So there is a self, and then we dress it up with a lot of qualities that are in actuality not there. And so from that self, the moment that self appears as inherent existent, the other automatically appears as well. If I do not have such a sense of self, the other is not so separate for me. But when I have a vision of myself or a perception of myself that I'm an objective entity, independent of anything else, then the other appears also as being an objective entity existing in and of itself, independent. With that kind of perception, we give the self a kind of power and we give the other a power, which in actuality, they are not there. But we give it with our mind. And so then on the level of the mind, it functions like that. But it is coming from something that is created by the mind that has no basis in reality. And so then from that self, also we experience, Sugat says, what do you mean by the other? The other person, the other object, so I have me and there is somebody else. Only because I perceive me, I perceive somebody else. Right? Me and other are dependent upon each other. And then independence of that self, we experience feelings. We experience pleasant feelings, we experience unpleasant feelings, which are the result of previous karma. And we experience these feelings by having contact with persons, with objects. Right? The persons or the objects are a condition for certain karma for us to ripen, and we experience the result of our karma. Pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings. What we believe, how it appears to us, is that that object or that person is inherently existence autonomous. And by contact with that, I'm going to have pleasant feelings. Wow, I may have to make sure I have more contact with that so that I have more pleasant feelings. Right? That's what we're doing. And so that attachment to grasping for more arises in dependence upon that self that we already perceived in a distorted way. So that attachment that arises in dependence on that is also distorted in perceiving its object. Attachment likes, when we like something, attachment follows. So what do we like? We like something, there is something attractive there. And so what attachment then does, how does attachment distort that object or that person? By exaggerating the positive qualities. Wow, that is really beautiful. As if that beauty is coming from the object. Right? That's what we believe. And then the more people see that beauty, the more we believe it is really coming from the object. But if beauty really would come from the object or from a person, then everyone who sees the object or that person would perceive that beauty in the same way. And we know that that is not true. Right? And the best example is when we fall in love. The person that we fall in love with is the most wonderful, fantastic, beautiful person on the whole planet. And whatever that person does, it's all wonderful, cute, fantastic. Right? But we are the only person who perceives it like that. And we believe it is true. And we believe that whole humanity cannot see actually how wonderful this person is. You know, if they would just see through my eyes, they would see the same thing. And we believe it is really that person. And so we feel fantastic. And then on the basis of what we see and all these positive qualities that we project, that we create with our mind, we're going to have expectations towards that person. Have you ever had the feeling that, especially in close relationships, people are expecting too much from you? Or they're expecting things of you that you cannot live up to all the time? That's because they project these beautiful qualities onto you and they expect them to be there always for them to enjoy. So when attachment arises in the mind, it appears as that which brings us closer to the object that we want to be close to. And so therefore, attachment appears as that which is going to make us happy. So then you hear Buddhist teachings and they say, you know, we're going to let go of attachment. And you think, oh, no, I cannot let go of my happiness. Right? Because without attachment, how can I be happy? Attachment is that what makes me happy. Can you please repeat? Let me have a look what you asked, Karen. Can you please repeat the part about self and other and how karma ripens in relation to that false perception? So if my karma ripens for a positive experience, some virtuous karma from the past ripens for a positive experience, and I'm making contact with an ice cream, then I taste the ice cream and I think, wow, fantastic ice cream, you know? And so what I believe is that that feeling that comes with, wow, what a fantastic ice cream, which is kind of a happy feeling, I believe it is coming from the ice cream. But in actuality, that ice cream is a condition for me to have that karma, that pleasurable karma, that pleasurable feeling to ripen. Is that all right? Okay, good. So attachment is out of touch with reality. We believe it appears as if it is going to bring us closer to the object, while in actuality it is distancing us from the object. It is distancing us from the object as it is. What it is doing, it is creating a fantasy about the object. And then we grasp and try and we believe that we're going to find what we have projected onto the object. But what we have projected onto the object, that fantasy that is coming from the mind, that is coming from that attachment, is not in the object. So therefore, attachment brings us further away from the object. True? It appears as what brings us closer to the object, and what it does, it takes us away from the object. And so when we then have contact with the object, which we have decorated with all these qualities that are not there, and we make contact with the object, it's disappointing. Right? We think something is missing, something is not right, something is not complete. I wish it was a little bit more like this. That's because our expectations are not matching with the object itself. Right? We're caught up in fantasy. And then we don't understand why it doesn't work. So just as attachment is out of touch with reality, in the same way, aversion and anger are out of touch with reality. And as attachment appears as that what is going to bring us closer to the object that we want, so that attachment is gonna, is that what is making us happy? In the same way, aversion and anger appears as that one is going to protect us from harm or suffering. Anger is that what is going to protect us by separating us from whatever we believe is harming us or causing us suffering. And so just as attachment is exaggerating the positive qualities of an object or a person, in the same way, anger and aversion are exaggerating the negative qualities of an object or a person. When somebody does something that really hurts us, you know, we don't think, oh, that action of you really hurt me. I still like you very much, but that action really hurt me. You know, if it really hurts, then we just look at that person, and then slowly, that whole person starts to appear as something unpleasant. And these aspects that before we liked them, now they start to change and they become somehow not likable anymore. And then even the good things that that person does is we say like, no, I don't want it anymore. I don't think it's coming from a sincere mind or whatever. You know, we have reasons why we say, no, I don't like it anymore. That's what anger does. Exaggerating the negative qualities. So we make it bigger, and it becomes the complete person. You know, same with attachment. Attachment, we have sometimes attachment to a little part of someone or something, and the whole person becomes wonderful. So Buddhism talks about, when we discuss attachment and aversion, we talk about the 8 worldly concerns, and maybe you have heard about that. So when we talk about the self-cherishing mind and the self-grasping mind, then we can see that they have interest in worldly pleasure, and the self-grasping and self-cherishing mind have interest in being free from the displeasures of this world. Right? So these are called the 8 worldly concerns. And so there are 4 things that we want to have, want to be close to, and 4 things that we want to be free of. So you can see when you formulate them as I want them, I want to have them, or I want to be free of them, they are all coming from wanting. They're all coming from attachment. So the first one is that we want to be happy. And so we crave for the pleasures of the 6 senses. Pleasure of the 6 senses is what is happiness for us. That is our happiness. So we crave for that. Wanting to be happy is a normal wish, and you should never ever drop that wish, right? I think I already told you that. That is actually the wish that is going to bring us to enlightenment. But wanting to be happy by craving for the 6 sense pleasures, or expecting to be happy by craving for the 6 sense pleasures, that is going to be a disappointment. Especially if you start looking at it, what actually happens in the mind when you do it. You know, you realize, oh, maybe that's not real happiness. Craving for the pleasures is the wanting that where you want to be close to. Then craving to be free from the unpleasant is the opposite of that. So not wanting to be unhappy. Craving to be free of the unpleasant experiences of the 6 senses. So that's a pair. And then the next pair is being happy when we acquire material things, or craving for material things, and being unhappy when we do not acquire material things. Right? When we go shopping, I think it's maybe triggers something from hunting. That when we find something in the shop that we really like and we can bring it home, we feel happy. Right? Maybe you might even have that when you go shopping for food. You know, you have 2 bags full of food and you feel somehow, yes, you know, yes, I got it. So when you cannot go shopping, when you cannot acquire anything, there is we can start to feel unhappy, depending on how much is still in your fridge and in your cupboard, but you can start to feel unhappy. So that's the second pair. Then the third pair is wanting to hear interesting sounds, which is craving to hear sweet, ego-pleasing words or sounds. Oh, you're so lovely. You're so wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. You know, we love to hear that. And so what we want to be free from is hearing uninterested sounds. So we crave not to hear displeasing words or sounds. That was really stupid of you. You know, why didn't you look better? Whatever. We don't like it when we hear that. We can feel hurt. And the last part is wanting praise or craving for personal praise and admiration and not wanting criticism, not wanting criticism. We're just craving to avoid personal slander, blame, and criticism. And so these two are more how people talk about us. You know, it's not just a nice, pleasing sound that you exchange. It is how people see you in the world. So attachment wants to have pleasure and wants to be free of the displeasure. That is the function of attachment. And in order to be free of the displeasure, aversion arises when displeasure is experienced. So can you see that they're both coming from attachment? The wanting to have the pleasure and wanting to be free of the displeasure. These are both motivated by attachment. So then you can wonder, is it wrong to have pleasure? You know, and especially Lama Yeshe, he was very good in that. He was like, no, you know, you should fully enjoy your pleasures. You know, pleasures are so precious to enjoy. They come from virtuous actions that you did in the past. It is so difficult to create virtue. So every pleasure that we experience, you should fully experience. But don't crave for more. Don't let attachment follow that pleasure. If we would not have any pleasures, it would be very difficult to, you know, to live life. But even more difficult to live life fully, right? It is the pleasure that makes that we feel that we can open up and that we can fully experience what is there. And so it can help us to feel our whole body, our nerve system, our skin, our whatever is in between. If we can feel all that when there is pleasure, you know, we live to the fullest. Then when the pleasure is finished, it's gone. We're not going to think, oh, I wish I still have a little bit more. Oh, I want to do this again. That's attachment. The moment you start coming with your attachment, whatever pleasure was there, you know, we can never re-experience that pleasure. But also we start to exaggerate somehow the qualities of that object. I don't know, have you ever done that? That you know, you think about something and you think, oh, if I had that, it would be really good. You know, maybe chocolate. If I had this chocolate, it would be really good. And you start thinking about this chocolate and dreaming about the chocolate. And you go to the shop and you buy the chocolate and you put it in your mouth. And it is, I don't know, I have this all the time. It's so disappointing. Some people really love their chocolate, but for me, it's always disappointing that I think, oh, I thought it was going to be better, you know. For me, it's not doing it. I do not have this huge pleasure coming when I eat chocolate but everyone seems to have. So sometimes I think, wow, maybe if I try this one, I'm going to have that experience, but disappointing. So as long as we have cravings for worldly pleasures, you know, it's going to be very difficult to do spiritual practice. Spiritual practice and going for worldly pleasures, they do not merge. They have opposite interest. One is interested in the pleasures of this life. One is interested in just focus on here and now. Often when we have a craving for a pleasurable experience, it is now. No, it's difficult to wait. Oh, I'll wait till tonight. I'll wait till tomorrow, you know. Sometimes we can't. I need to have it now. Well, spiritual practice is not at all concerned about what is happening in this life. Spiritual practice is thinking about creating causes and conditions to have a good future life, or to have liberation from samsara, or to develop the causes for enlightenment so that we can be of greater benefit to all sentient beings. Spiritual practice is not interested in the pleasure now, right? So then what sometimes people do is they start to do all kinds of spiritual practices to have happiness now. If I do my yoga practice and if I do this practice, I really feel good. Oh, I feel so good. So then I'm going to do my yoga practice to feel good. Right? Then if I don't have yoga, I really feel shitty because, you know, that was my opportunity to feel good. So then attachment starts coming in. And then we start doing spiritual practices in order to have good feelings. You know, then it becomes just a worldly dharma. So we have to be careful with that. So this doesn't mean then therefore that when we do yoga, we shouldn't experience pleasure. No, you know, of course, you feel better in your body. And so, but you can think, I do not want to feel better in my body just for today. I want to feel good today so that I can do this and this and this, so that I can develop my potential further, so that I can progress on the spiritual path, so that I can be of greatest benefit. Great, do your yoga. You know, it's going to be supportive of what you want. I just have a quick look at a question. What you said at the beginning about self and others. Is it possible with meditation to make others things self to disappear? You know, I know there are meditations where you can let yourself disappear and then others disappear, and then we feel like, oh, so there is no difference between me and others. We both disappear. But that's not exactly what Buddhism means. The way how self and others are dependent upon each other. One teacher explained it like this. He said, if you have one side of the river, you know, we are at one side of the river. And because we are at this side, we call it me. And the other people at the other side of the river, we call others. But if we were on the other side of the river, we would be others. Right? Or if, to say it differently, if I have two sides of the river, I can say this is this side where I'm standing and that is the other side. I call it this side because I'm here, and I call that the other side because I'm not there. But if I move to the other side, then the other side becomes this side, and the side that I call now this side becomes the other side. Right? And that way, this side and the other side are dependent upon each other. But they are not inherently belonging to one side. They belong to one side. The reason why they belong to one side is because of perspective. And so I call this me and the other person other because of perspective. Because I'm observing this one. I identify with this one. I'm feeling what is belonging to this consciousness and this body. I'm not feeling what belongs to the other person. So therefore the other person is other. It's like the other side of the river. This is me, this side of the river. But when I die and I get a new body, right? That new body becomes me. And if I would see the body of my previous one, that would be an other. So me and other depend upon each other. When I can observe me, I can observe other. So how can I not observe me? I think what we need to learn is that me is not in Buddhism, we sometimes say we are the same. We are the same in that we all want to be happy. We all want to be free of suffering. What happens to others can happen to me, right? So what we say is that, that happens to others, that I don't have to care about that. But if I realize what happens to them can happen to me, why shouldn't I care about them? I should care about them. Because this me, that I feel this as me, is just a relative notion of due to perspective, nothing else. There is no other difference between me and other than the perspective. Others have exactly the same feelings as me. Others have exactly the same difficulties as me. Others have exactly the same longings as me. Why do I only work for this one and not for the other one? So I think Buddhism looks more in that way, not so much in how can I let them disappear, more how can I see them in a perspective that is connected to reality. So let me finish this and then I'll go to the next question. So we believe that pleasure, the pleasure that we experience, comes from the object, comes from the other person, or from our contact with the other person or the object. And we believe that this pleasure is real happiness. Actually, this pleasure is the only happiness that we have, right? We have not experienced other types of happiness. So both are not true. And how can we see that? For instance, if I feel that, this chocolate is the cause of this is the real cause of my happiness, the chocolate, that would mean that when I would keep eating the chocolate, I would feel more happy, more happy, more happy. And we know that at a certain point changes. Instead of feeling happy, we start to suffer. As a matter of fact, that first bite of chocolate, there is the most happiness in that. Then when we keep eating, the happiness decreases. It never increases. If it were to be real happiness that we get from chocolate, then the second bite should increase the happiness and the third bite should increase it even more because it's real. So then the more you have of it, the more you should feel that happiness. But we know that with every activity that we do, with every contact with, whether it's people or objects, the longer it lasts, there is a point that we're going to suffer from that contact. And so therefore, in Buddhism, it says that we think that there is pleasure. We label it as pleasure. We label it as happiness. But in actuality, it is suffering. Because when we keep engaging in the activity, eventually we're going to suffer. So it is in the nature of suffering. And so if there was real pleasure, and I already mentioned this, then everyone would experience the same. That is what real means. if not everyone experiences the same as you do, it means it depends. It depends upon something. That you experience pleasure and the other person doesn't experience pleasure. Therefore, it is not real. So attachment is sometimes compared to having a skin disease. You know, it's like you're fine for a while and at a certain point it starts itching. And so you scratch yourself and maybe you open the wound, but somehow you feel a relief from that itching, you know, and temporarily the itching is gone and then the itching starts again and we need to scratch again. So in the same way, we need to, you know, this craving for whatever objects, persons keeps coming up every day, again and again and again, you know. So Buddhism says that it's like a disease, like a skin disease, that you need to keep scratching in order to not feel the itching of the skin disease. But it says, wouldn't it be better if we would get totally rid of that skin disease, that we were free from that skin disease, that we do not have to scratch anymore. So real happiness, if we think, okay, if the happiness from attachment is not real happiness, what is real happiness? Real happiness is that what arises when we abandon attachment, when we have freedom from attachment. And that happiness is a peaceful and stable happiness. That happiness is a quality of the mind that can arise when attachment has been abandoned. And so we can abandon attachment by kind of suppressing it in the sense of not stimulating it. For instance, if you do a lot of fasting, at a certain point your craving for food starts to diminish further and further and further. Then the mind feels free. If you know, there are people who get really agitated when there is a lot around them. So you make the environment empty of too many stimuli. So then the mind becomes free of that distraction that wasn't there before. So that is called a kind of suppression. You do not provide the conditions that normally triggers the attachment. You change the conditions so that the attachment is subdued. Developing concentration is also very helpful for lessening the attachment. Therefore, mindfulness, when we bring the mind in the present moment, you know, that attachment that jumps up and wants something in the future, something out there, is not in the present moment. So the more we can bring the mind to the present moment, also attachment doesn't get a chance. And then when attachment is in the mind, you know, we think about the chocolate. Oh, I really want to have the chocolate. I once went to Tibet and there were these guys and they were talking about pizzas, I think the last 10 days of the trip. All the time about pizzas. And I thought, why are you torturing yourself like that? There is no pizza here. Why talking about it? You know you cannot get it. But when you have the thought, oh, I really would like to have a pizza, it's up to you then to keep thinking about it and dreaming about it and feeding that craving mind while not being able to give it to the mind or to the body. Or you distract your mind and you start thinking about something else. Right? That's a choice that we have. When we start following attachment that has an idea about objects and people which is exaggerated, which is not realistic, and therefore the object or the person can never fulfill your expectations. Therefore, when we follow our attachment, there will be no satisfaction. There will be dissatisfaction. There is something missing. There was always something missing. It's very difficult. It's not possible. Attachment cannot make us really happy, or the happiness is not complete, or the happiness is not good enough, or once we finish the activity, we would like to do it again, or we would like to have something more. That is because the expectations that we have are based on a fantasy that the object can never fulfill. And so then even following desire, you know, when desire is in the mind, it is a suffering, right? We think, oh, it's going to make me happy. But if you recheck, the craving mind is suffering. And you can see that if the suffering becomes bigger and bigger, you know, if we look into people who are addicted, that's just a very strong form of attachment. There is no happiness in addiction. And so then when we keep following attachment, life becomes empty, you know, it doesn't have any meaning. And the habit of following attachment, we will, if we die with that, we will have that next life again and next life again, and we will just keep having the same problems again and again. And so Lama Zopa then says this is much worse than cancer. You know, cancer, when we die, cancer is gone. When you die from cancer, cancer is finished. The karma of having cancer is finished. But the karma of you following your desire is still there. So that will continue lifetime after lifetime. And so when we have strong desire, when we have dissatisfaction, then it is also easy to become angry, or we become very unhappy, or the mind becomes very clouded. You know, when we fall in love with someone and we have this huge attachment arising in the mind, we say that that person has gone out of their mind, right? It's just that the attachment has taken them to a place that is not grounded anymore, that is not based on reality anymore. And so then dissatisfaction, you know, is a stress, right? If we are dissatisfied, we don't like it. We feel there is a kind of stress in the body. Stress is the best cause for disease. So how do we counteract it? And we will practice that a little bit in the meditation, so I won't go too much into detail. But the best way is by being content with what you have. And then if that doesn't work good enough, you can reflect on impermanence. Impermanence of your experience, the impermanence of the object or the person that you are attached to, the impermanence of your own life. And then you can do, of course, a reality check. You know, is that really such good chocolate? Is that really such a wonderful person? Is that really such an awful person? And you can then maybe focus on other aspects. So when you're very attached, you can look into aspects that are not so pleasant, you know, and say, okay, you know, these pleasant aspects, I can, for me, they are there, but that's not all. There are also unpleasant aspects. And when we see someone that we has done something that hurts us and we absolutely hate that person, then we can look that there are also positive aspects. That person is loved by his family. That person is loving towards his family. That person is doing other good things. You know, it was just that action. It is not a full, totally bad person. So that is also a way to counteract your attachment. So how do we live life to the fullest without buying into our attachment? By fully experiencing the pleasures that arise due to contact with an object or a person, and staying with that pleasures as long as it lasts. Then you let it go. So if you feel that you would like to experience something similar again, or if you have strong needs, then you could think, what are the causes for that? For instance, you have a strong need to hear a good word from someone. What are the causes for that? Giving good words to others. If you have a strong need to be loved, what are the causes to be loved? Loving others. If you have a strong need for wealth, what is the cause for wealth? Giving wealth. Right? If you want something, try to get it in a clever way. Create the causes for it. If you want to be seen, see others. If you want to be heard, hear others. And so in the beginning, that can be tough, especially if you have this deep-seated need for love or something else, to then give it to others because you get reminded of your pain again and again. But if you do that a couple of times, it becomes easier and easier, and then you might actually get a lot of pleasure from just doing that activity. And then one day somebody might see you or hear you or, give something that you were in such need of, and maybe you discover, oh, my need is not that big anymore. But how nice that that person is saying that to me. So that's how we deal with attachment. I'm going to look at the question from Karen. Pleasure arises, and Charlotte, was that clear for you, that what I said about others and things? Otherwise you type me. Oh yes, it's much clear. Oh, great, your answer already there. Pleasure arises as a result of virtuous seeds ripening, so they are then used up. Yes. Wouldn't it therefore be better to encourage negative seeds to ripen than they are used up in this lifetime? I wouldn't. It seems that we have so many negative seeds, I would say we have endless seeds for negative karma to ripen. I would not encourage anyone to create the conditions for these seeds to ripen so that they are used up. I think there are more skillful ways to deal with these negative seeds, not by using them up. What we can do is, when suffering arises, we can contemplate, oh, that is the result of my negative karma, and now that seed has been used up, and I don't have to worry about that seed anymore, right? But we have many similar seeds in the mind that can ripen as well. So the way that we deal with the negative seeds is by applying the 4 opponent powers. You know that, Karen? Yes. So then the seeds, we make them to have less potential. The potential of the seed decreases when we do the 4 opponent powers. And so when we have a negative experience, for instance, we can't keep meeting people who are so rude to us or disrespectful to us. We have a lot of seeds for being disrespected. So we must have disrespected others in the past, and I can use that in my purification with the 4 opponent powers by regretting that I did that and that I want to purify that. And so then by purifying that, all these seeds, and I can then imagine all the lifetimes that I did that and towards all sentient beings, and I purify that in relation to all sentient beings, you know, then I can work very powerful. Then I don't have to ripen seed by seed by seed. I just eliminate the potential, or I diminish the potential of all seeds related to being disrespected. Yeah. And then when we realize emptiness directly, the seeds, they lose completely their power for ripening, you know. And also one very strong force that ripens negative seeds is our delusions. And so when we have less delusions in the mind, also less negative seeds can ripen, or the negative seeds can ripen less well. So when we take care of our mind and we keep our mind clear and we keep the delusions subdued by applying the antidotes, you know, it's very difficult for negative seeds to ripen, right? And that is, I think that is totally fine, because then we create an environment in which they cannot ripen, in which we have quite okay experiences, and that is ideal to practice Dharma. Right? If we are only suffering, it's very, very difficult to practice Dharma. When we feel good, you know, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. We have a lot of energy to do virtuous actions. All right? Okay. In what Eric says, in what way does increasing meditation concentration lessen attachment? So when we practice concentration, when we practice concentration, we bring the mind to the here and now. The delusions do not arise in the independence on the mind that is really present in the here and now. Delusions, when they arise, they always take us, especially attachment, takes us to the future. You know, or maybe we might overthink things that we did in the past that we really liked, and attachment is still there. But in general, it goes more to, oh, what is going to come, and I want to do this, and I want to achieve that. So it goes towards the future. When we bring the mind in the present moment, it's difficult for attachment to arise. When we have a lot of attachment, forget about practicing shamatha. Right? You're sitting there in your retreat cabin and the mind is like these boys in Tibet, you know, I want to have the pizza, I want to have the pizza. And so meditation is not going to happen. So by bringing the mind in the present, by focusing the mind, attachment gets suppressed. And when we have very strong concentration like the shamatha, then which is the calm abiding, then we generate a mind that is beyond the desire realm, not beyond the desire realm, I'm sorry. It is beyond the desire realm. It is a mind that goes in the form realm. And in the form realm, the attachment is still there, but very subtle and focused on your own experience. So it is not interested anymore in any sense objects. I don't know if that answer made any sense. Debbie says, what are the 4 opponent powers? The 4 opponent powers are a way to purify our negative karma. And so what we do is we recall our negative actions, and then in dependence on that, we generate strong regret, realizing that these actions are actually the cause of suffering for ourselves. And when we suffer, it is very hard to achieve anything that we would like to achieve. So we regret our negative actions. And then we take refuge in the Buddha and generate bodhicitta, which means that we visualize all the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. We visualize all sentient beings, because our negative actions have been created in relation to them. By taking refuge in the three jewels, there is a purifying effect for all the negative actions that we created in relation to them. And by visualizing all sentient beings and generated bodhicitta towards them, that counteracts the harm that we have done in relation to sentient beings. And then we engage in a kind of practice, and we do often Vajrasattva practice, but you can also do, for instance, read sutras, the Golden Light Sutra, the Heart Sutra, the Diamond Cutter Sutra, in order to purify the negative actions that you have done. And then after that, you generate a strong determination that you do not want to engage in that, creating that negative action again. And sometimes you can manage that for 5 minutes, sometimes you can manage that for an hour, but you make a determination for however long you can abstain from that negative action. And then you dedicate the merits for the benefit of all sentient beings and for your own enlightenment. So these are the 4 opponent powers in a very fast. You can, I'm sure when you Google it or when you go on the FPMT website or on the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive website, you can find a lot of information on it. Okay, Eric, was that clear with what I said about the shamatha meditation? Eric has gone, I think.
Eric is here, Venerable. Should I
Oh,
unmute?
it's clear. Oh, it's clear. I had a thumb. I didn't see everyone. I'm sorry. I did see you now. All right. Are there any more questions? Was that okay, Debbie? Can you do something with that, what I just told you? Okay. Good. If there are no more questions, then we can do a meditation. And I thought to do a meditation on how to be in the present moment with our own mind and recognizing what is popping up and what is the meaning of that and how can we be with that in a skillful way. All right, maybe too many words for a simple meditation. Or next week, we're gonna start looking into how we can, I'm not sure actually, I didn't look what we're gonna do next week. Let me have a look. I made a schedule. We're gonna look into ways that we can improve our skills, our qualities, our mind, what we can do with how we can transform our mind. When anger arises, when attachment arises, what can we do in order to change the direction of that mind? Right? So we have looked now at all these things that hold us back from living life to the fully. And now we need to know how to address them, because they will keep popping up for a long, 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 long time. And so we need to become very skilled in recognizing them and then knowing what to do with it. All right. Everyone good? Yeah. So then make yourself comfortable. If you want to sit in a formal meditation posture, that is totally fine. If you want to sit on a chair, even if you want to sit on the couch, that is all good. The main thing is that you find a posture in which you can really connect with your body. in which your mind likes to stay with your body, and also where your mind is alert, observing the mind staying with the body. And so to find that posture, it is, no matter how you are sitting, it is always good to do quick body scans at the beginning of the meditation to make sure that you let go of any tension that is there. And maybe if you feel some energy moving, to connect with that energy. And then focus your awareness on your breath. Breathe normally. Just be aware of the breath going in and out. And then make sure that you have an open mind during the meditation. An open mind means that we can accept whatever arises. When we accept whatever arises, there is no aversion in the mind. Contemplate that. If I can accept whatever arises, there is no aversion. And if we have no expectations of what might come, there is no desire as attachment in the mind. When we bring the mind to the present moment, we can see the impermanent nature of things. We can see feelings arising in the mind and dissolving back into the mind. We can observe our mind reacting to the feelings. And if we don't follow this reaction, we can see that a reaction naturally dissolves back into the mind. Being mindful gives us the opportunity to see the transient nature of everything. Everything that arises naturally dissolves again. When we can observe the impermanent nature of all things through our experience, it can affect the mind deeply. It's not just a knowing on intellectual level, but it is a knowing deep inside, which affects how we perceive and engage with ourselves and the world. In the beginning, compared to following our attachment, observing our feelings and reactions without getting involved can appear to be boring. But that's a good sign. I would say it feels very different. I need to be more attentive to feel it. I need to look deeper to get inspired by it. When we go back to the experience, we connect with life. Life as it is. How can it be boring? When we can see the impermanent nature of, for instance, our feelings, then there is no clinging to pleasant experiences and no aversion to unpleasant experiences. You realize that there is nothing to hold on to. Everything passes away by itself. Feeling arises in every moment of mind. When pleasure arises in the mind, we react with attachment. This is our attempt to re-experience the pleasant feelings. The way we perceive things is that we first need to have attachment in order to experience pleasure. So we think, if I have to give up my attachment, then I have to give up my pleasure. But this is not true. When we give up attachment, we experience more or more full the pleasure. The nature of attachment is that it cannot give you satisfaction. When we follow attachment, there is always something missing, or we want more, or we want something different. For instance, when we sit, we want to stand up. When we stand up, we want to walk. There is never contentment. This is suffering. Pleasant feelings arise in dependence on a concept, an idea, or independence on the body. When a pleasant feeling arises, instead of following it, try to step back and give it space. And you do this by being mindful, by being in the present moment. Then you will not be carried away by the feeling. You will stop clinging to it. When we practice contentment, we accept what is or what we have. Without desire, there is no dissatisfaction. And this is where peace starts. Peace lays within knowledge. As soon as we understand, as soon as we can see, peace comes. As soon as we understand, we are clinging, we are desiring something, we are wanting something, we are worrying. As soon as we understand that, we accept it. Oh yes, I'm worrying. Oh yes, I'm clinging. The moment we see that and we accept it, it doesn't become bigger. And then recall which contemplation we did today was most helpful to you. And then with that, bring this meditation to a conclusion. And then we can dedicate all the merits that we have created by doing this meditation, but also doing the session today by listening and reflecting and asking questions. And then not only the session today, but also we can include in our dedication all the sessions that we did this week. And if you have been present with all 5 of them, we dedicate a merit of all 5 of them. So you can imagine that all the positive energy that you gathered, and don't underestimate that positive energy. It is really, really fantastic what you have been doing. Gather that in the form of white light into your heart. And let it fill your body completely. All that positive energy is the potential for happiness in the future. And so we can share that around by allowing that white light to flow over through our crown, flowing in all directions, touching each and every sentient being, bringing them all the happiness they are longing for, all temporary happiness and all ultimate happiness. Their whole bodies become filled with white light. And you can see that sentient being start smiling at you. And that makes you happy, content. And you feel that your actions have been meaningful. And then I want to thank you for being here and for all the great work that you have been doing this week. And I hope to see you. I hope you're going to have a really nice weekend. A good opportunity maybe to investigate your attachment. If you are in lockdown, so as we here, you can observe your attachment that actually wants to go out maybe, or whatever situation presents itself. Attachment and aversion are always around the corner. So use that time to do some observations. And in the meantime, enjoy all the pleasures that are coming to you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on Monday. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Venerable, so much. You too have a happy and restful weekend.
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone. See you all
Bye-bye.
on Monday. Happy
Bye.
weekend. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone.